cost.
Now, the learning unit then introduced something called the economic order quantity EOQ. That sounds very technical, but like a way to figure out the just right amount to order.
That's exactly what it tries to do. The EOQ model is a classic tool, a mathematical model, to help businesses determine the optimal quantity of inventory to order at a given time.
Optimal, meaning cheapest.
Essentially, yes. The goal is to minimize the total inventory costs, and it recognizes that there's this fundamental trade-off. Ordering frequently in small batches keeps your average inventory levels low, which reduces holding cost.
But increases ordering costs, right? More paperwork, more deliveries.
Exactly. On the other hand, ordering large quantities less frequently reduces your ordering costs.
But increases the cost of holding all that inventory. Storage, insurance, risk of it going bad.
Precisely. The EOQ model tries to find that sweet spot, that specific order quantity, where the total of these costs, the ordering costs and the carrying or holding costs, is at its lowest point.
So it's all about balancing the expenses of ordering versus the expenses of storing.
That's the core principle, yes. The model suggests that total inventory costs are minimized when your annual ordering costs are roughly equal to your annual carrying costs. Carrying costs, just to be clear, are all those expenses associated with holding inventory, warehouse rent, insurance security, the risk of obsolescence or spoilage. These costs tend to increase the more inventory you hold, so they increase with larger order sizes.
Right.
Ordering costs, as we discussed, are the fixed costs associated with placing and receiving each order. These tend to decrease on a per-unit basis as you order larger quantities less frequently.
Okay, so order a lot. Carrying costs go up, ordering costs per unit go down. Order a little, carrying costs go down, ordering costs per unit go up. The EOQ finds the theoretical middle ground.
You've got it. That's the logic.
But the learning unit mentioned some pretty big assumptions the EOQ model relies on, didn't it?
Yes, that's a crucial point. The classic EOQ model is a simplification of reality, and it rests on several key assumptions that often don't hold perfectly true in the real world.
Like what?
Like, it assumes that the demand for the product is known and constant over time.
Which rarely happens.
Exactly. It assumes the cost of placing an order is constant, regardless of the order size. It assumes the purchase price per unit is also constant, no bulk discounts.
Also not always true.
Right. It assumes the delivery lead time is fixed and known, and that there are no delays in replenishment.
So basically it assumes a perfectly predictable world.
Pretty much. Which we know isn't reality. Demand fluctuates, suppliers offer discounts, deliveries get delayed.
So how useful is the EOQ in practice then, if its assumptions are often wrong?
Well, it provides a valuable theoretical benchmark. Even if the real world is messier, the EOQ gives businesses a good starting point and, importantly, a valuable framework for thinking about the trade-offs involved in inventory costs.
A thinking tool.
Exactly. The learning unit used that example, colors galore, remember?
Vaguely, yeah.
It illustrated how different order sizes impact the total ordering and holding costs. By calculating these costs for various order quantities, they showed how you can visually or mathematically identify a quantity that comes close to minimizing the total cost. And it even presents the actual EOQ formula, which looks a bit scary, but basically takes into account the annual demand, the cost per order, and the holding cost per unit per year. You can even factor in the cost of capital, like an interest rate, if your inventory is financed.
So it's a more sophisticated calculation than just guessing, even with the assumptions.
Definitely provides a more structured approach.
And once you know how much to order, using something like EOQ as a guide, you also need to know when to order, right? That leads us to the reorder point and safety stock concepts.
Exactly. Managing inventory effectively has these two key dimensions. Determining the optimal order quantity, the how much part, which EOQ helps with, and deciding when to place those orders.
The timing.
Right. The when is all about timing your orders to minimize holding costs while still avoiding those costly stockouts. And the key metric here is the reorder point.
Reorder point.
It's the specific inventory level, the number of units left on the shelf that signals, okay, time to place a new order. It needs to be high enough to cover your expected demand during the lead time.
Lead time being the time it takes for the new order to arrive.
Exactly, from placing the order to receiving the goods.
Okay, so if I know I sell, say, about 20 units a week on average, and it typically takes 4 weeks for a new shipment to get to me, should I reorder when my stock hits 80 units? 4 weeks, 20 units a week.
That's perfectly correct. If your sales are perfectly consistent and your deliveries always arrive exactly on time, that's what the learning unit called Dimension 1. Constant usage.
Back to the perfect world assumptions.
Kind of. The formula is simple in that case. reorder point, lead time average usage rate. So 4 weeks times 20 units a week equals 80 units.
But we know demand isn't always steady and deliveries can be late.
Exactly. You might have a sudden surge in sales, or your supplier might have a delay. That's where Dimension 2 comes in variable usage and the crucial need for safety stock.
Safety stock. The buffer.
Right. Safety stock is that extra inventory you keep on hand above what you expect to use during the lead time, just as a buffer against these unexpected increases in demand or delays in your supplier's deliveries. Insurance, basically.
So how do you figure out how much of that extra buffer, that safety stock, you actually need? Is there a formula for that too?
There is. The learning unit provides a common way to calculate it. Safety stock, maximum usage rate, average usage rate, lead time.
Okay, max minus average times lead time.
Right. So let's say in our example, your average weekly sales are 20 units, but in a really busy week, you might sell up to 38 units, and your lead time is still 4 weeks. Your safety stock calculation would be 38 units, 20 units, 4 weeks.
Okay, that's 18 units difference per week times 4 weeks, 72 units.
Exactly. 72 units would be your calculated safety stock to protect against those busier weeks or potential minor delays within that 4-week lead time.
Okay, so that's an extra 72 units I should try to keep on hand just in case. And presumably that changes when I should reorder, right?
It absolutely does. Your reorder point now needs to account for both the expected usage during lead time and that safety stock buffer. The updated formula becomes reorder point, lead time average usage rate, plus safety stock.
Ah, you just add the safety stock on.
Yep. So using our example, that would be 4 weeks, 20 units a week, plus 72 units.
80 plus 72, 152 units.
Correct. So instead of waiting until your inventory drops down to 80 units, you'd now place your reorder when your stock level hits 152 units to give yourself that crucial safety net.
That makes perfect sense. It's about planning for the bumps in the road, the variability of the real world. Much more realistic.
It aims to be, yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears again slightly. The learning unit also spent quite a bit of time on the apportionment of overheads. That sounds like figuring out how to fairly distribute those indirect costs, like the factory rent or the electricity bill or maybe the cost of the HR department across the different products or services a company offers.
That's precisely it. In many organizations, especially manufacturing, you have these service departments, think maintenance, human resources, accounting, IT, plant facilities that exist primarily to support the core production departments.
They don't make the product directly, but they help those who do.
Exactly. These service departments incur their own costs, salaries, supplies, depreciation on their equipment, etc. And the whole goal of overhead apportionment is to allocate these indirect costs to the products or services that ultimately benefit from their existence.
And sometimes these support departments even help each other out, right? Like IT helps HR.
Yes, exactly. Those are called interdepartmental services. IT might support HR systems. HR might handle hiring for maintenance. Maintenance might fix things for admin. It can get complex.
And why is it so important to go through this sometimes complicated-sounding process of apportionment? Why not just focus on the direct costs of making a widget, the materials, and the labor?
That's a fair question. The main reason is to get a more accurate picture of the total cost of producing a product or delivering a service.
The true cost.
Right. By including a fair share of all the supporting service department costs, you arrive at a much more comprehensive cost figure. And this is crucial for several things: setting appropriate selling prices.
Can't price it right if you don't know the full cost.
Exactly. Also for evaluating product profitability. Is this product actually making money when you consider all the costs? And for making informed decisions about resource allocation. The learning unit used that example of a distance education tutorial letter.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
The cost isn't just the paper and ink. It includes a portion of the time spent by academic staff developing it, the resources used by the administrative departments processing enrollments, the electricity to run the printing presses, the IT system supporting the online platform. All those overhead costs need to be factored in somewhere to understand the true cost of delivering that educational service via that letter.
Right, so it's about getting a full, holistic understanding of all the costs involved. Okay, so how do businesses actually do this apportionment? What are the methods?
The learning unit outlined 3 common methods used for reassigning these service department costs over to the production departments. They are the direct method, the step method, sometimes called the step-down method, and the linear algebraic method, or reciprocal method.
Okay, three methods.
Yeah, and they basically vary in their complexity and, importantly, the degree to which they recognize those interdepartmental services we talked about, services provided between the service departments themselves.
Okay, direct and step sound may be relatively straightforward compared to linear algebraic. What's the key difference between direct and step?
The direct method is definitely the simplest. It takes the total costs accumulated in each service department and allocates them directly to the production departments, completely ignoring any services that service departments might provide to each other.
So HR costs go straight to production A and production B, maintenance costs go straight to A and B, and you ignore the fact that maintenance fixed HR's air conditioning.
Exactly. It uses some relevant allocation base, like number of employees for HR costs or square footage for rent facilities costs, but allocates only outwards to production. Its main limitation is that lack of recognition for interdepartmental services.
Simple, but maybe not fully accurate if those interdepartmental services are significant. What about the step method?
The step method is a bit more refined. It does acknowledge that some service departments serve others. It involves ranking the service departments first, usually based on which one provides the most service to other service departments.
Okay, you rank them.
Then you allocate their costs sequentially, starting with the highest ranked one. So you allocate the first service department's costs to all other departments. It serves both production and the remaining service departments.
So it goes to other service departments too.
Yes, initially. But here's the key. Once a service department's costs have been allocated out in its step, it doesn't receive any further allocations from other service departments lower down in the sequence. It's a one-way, step-down approach.
So the first one allocated gives but doesn't receive back later. Got it. Partial recognition.
Exactly. It's more accurate than direct, but it's still not perfectly reciprocal.
Okay, so the step method acknowledges some of those interdependencies, while direct just sends everything straight to production. And then there's the linear algebraic method, which still sounds, well, like something out of a math textbook.
It is the most mathematically intensive of the three, no doubt. The linear algebraic method, or reciprocal method, fully recognizes all interdepartmental services simultaneously.
Fully recognizes.
How? It sets up a system of linear equations. Each equation represents the total cost of a department, both service and production, as its own direct costs, plus a proportion of the costs of any other service departments it uses.
So each department's cost depends on the others.
Precisely. You end up with a set of simultaneous equations reflecting these interdependencies. These equations are then solved algebraically, usually using substitution or matrix algebra, to determine the final total cost of each department, including all the fully reassigned service costs, considering the back and forth.
Wow.
The learning unit provided an example, I think it was example 5.5, with 2 production departments and 2 service departments, showing how to set up those equations and solve them to get the total costs. It allows for the most precise allocation, especially when those interdepartmental relationships are significant and complex.
It sounds like each method really has its trade-offs then. Simplicity versus accuracy. Direct is easy but ignores stuff. Step is better but not perfect. Algebraic is most accurate but requires more math.
That's a very good summary of it. The choice often depends on the complexity of the organization and the level of accuracy needed for decision-making.
Okay. Now, the learning unit